Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here with us tonight. My name is Andrea Walters, and I am the Community Support Coordinator at Hydrocephalus Canada. I'm your moderator for the webinar tonight. Now let's welcome our hosts for tonight's session. Melissa Thorne is an adult living with both spina bifida and hydrocephalus, and she's also a youth coordinator at Holland, Bloorview. Melissa uses her lived experiences with her disability to help clients and families with independence and the transition to adult services with hospital and community resources. Thanks for joining us tonight, Melissa.
Thank you.
And our co-host and surprise guest is Shauna Baudouin. Shauna lives with the most severe form of spina bifida. She's the interim executive director and director of programs and information for Hydrocephalus Canada. Shauna was raised in a small fishing village in southwestern Ontario. She graduated from the radio broadcasting program at Fanshawe College and has vast experience with the disability community. Shauna, thanks for being with us here tonight.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with Melissa's role. Melissa, can you tell us what you do at Holland Bloorview as a youth facilitator?
Sure, Andrea. So my role is called a youth facilitator, and that means that I have a disability and I use my lived experience to help our clients and their families to become more independent and help them through the journey of transition, using my tips and tricks and using hospital resources and community resources as well.
Great, thanks. And what about you, Shauna? Can you tell us about your role with Hydrocephalus Canada?
Sure. So I've been with the organization since 1995. I started as a volunteer and I've held various positions with the organization for over 25 years. As you mentioned, I am currently the interim executive director and the director of programs and information. My main role is to provide direct support, information, and referral services to those impacted by hydrocephalus and spina bifida. I'm also involved in numerous research projects in partnership with Sick Kids, Holland, Bloorview, and the University of Toronto to improve the lives of those living with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. Throughout my career and personal life, I have advocated for services for persons with disabilities, and I'm also an individual living with spina bifida, and I share my experiences to help guide parents, youth, and adults through the often challenging aspects of the conditions.
Thank you, Shauna and Melissa. And you can really hear how your roles and your background can help tonight with answering questions that young people may have, young people with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. Maybe you can tell the group a bit about growing up. How would you describe your experience? Shauna, if we could start with you.
Sure, I can start us off. Well, actually, last week I celebrated my 51st birthday, and 51 years ago, that wasn't something that doctors thought would actually happen. My lifespan was only to be about to the age of 20, but I've gone way past that, which is great. Yes. I grew up in a small town called Wheatley. I went to the local elementary school. When I went to school, there were no education policies at the time regarding inclusion. So basically my parents and the school staff worked together to make any necessary accommodations for toileting. That also means that I never had an assessment for an individual education plan throughout my schooling. I find that reflecting back, I think that this would have been very helpful as I struggled with a lot of subjects like math and geography and sciences. I would often get very frustrated trying to understand the more involved math subjects like fractions and percentages and geometry. Oh, geometry. To this day, I have difficulty with math equations. It's just something that I've learned to work around, and I figure them out the best way that I can. By grade 2, I think I started to realize that I was a little different than my classmates. I have some paralysis in my right leg, but I'm able to walk. As a child, I wore AFOs, and in this picture here, you can, at 3 months, I had a cast on my foot because I have a club foot. So they were trying to straighten it out. Funny little antidote here. I went through several casts as a baby because I hated having it on my foot, and I would sit on the floor and pound and pound and pound until it cracked. So yeah, I had many of them. As a child, I wore AFOs, but by grade 6, they said I didn't need them any longer. So that was great with me. And I've been able to walk without any assistive devices until recently. Toileting has also been a challenge for me. I have no controlled bladder or bowel function. So when I started school up to about grade 3, I think, I had to use diapers. There weren't pull-ups or incontinence briefs available at that time. And I was tiny enough that I still was able to use diapers. It was also around this time that I had a bladder augmentation surgery and I started to self-catheterize. I also have a colostomy to manage my bowel function. Surgeries. So most of my surgeries involved or were for my back. I have severe scoliosis. I also had a lot of surgeries for the bladder and bowel management. I remember my first back surgery to insert rods and to try and make my back straighter and to stop the curve from getting worse. I was in a body cast from my neck to my pelvis for 6 months. My teachers would often have the class make get well cards for me if I was away from school for long periods of time. It was great to be acknowledged and thought of, but it often caused friction with some of my classmates, a bit of favoritism there, which, you know, you want to be like everybody else. You don't want to be, you know, the center stage. At least I didn't. I think one of the biggest challenges for me growing up was there wasn't anyone in my school or my community that was like me. So I didn't have anyone else to ask about the things I was experiencing with my spina bifida other than my doctors. I guess it really wasn't until I connected with Hydrocephalus Canada in my early 20s that I finally felt I belonged and that my differences were my uniqueness. They also understood what I lived with on a daily basis. And I also realized that I didn't need to be ashamed of my spina bifida anymore. And I started to open up and share glimpses of my condition with others. So that's a little bit of how I grew up.
Thank you, Shauna. Thanks for that. Melissa, what about you? If you could tell us about your experience growing up as your childhood.
Sure. So I too grew up in a small town. I grew up in Blue Mountain, about 3 hours from the city, and I had a little bit of a different growing up than Shauna did. I have a twin sister, so we were always kind of comparing each other, and I feel like she helped me get to where I am today because I always wanted to do the things that she could do. So she kind of pushed me in that way. So it was really good. I've had multiple surgeries. My last one last year was number 32. So I've had orthopedic surgeries, urology surgeries, and shunt surgeries as well. Some of them were pretty tough, and most of the orthopedic ones really did kind of hinder my mental health and things like that. So it was a little bit of a struggle getting through those, but having my classmates and my friends be there to support me and to help me get through it was really good. I struggle with my hydrocephalus just in the last couple of years with headaches and migraines and some symptoms that aren't usually connected or aren't the norm of hydrocephalus. So I didn't have vomiting. I don't have the dizziness. I had back pain and head pressure, and that was it. So my last surgery, I really didn't know that was the problem. So I kind of waited a little bit too long. But throughout my childhood, it was really good. I was just like Shauna, I was the only one for a few years that had spina bifida. So I didn't have have that connection. But once I started growing up and being connected to the spina bifida clinic at Holland Bloorview, I would see Shauna, I would see the other kids at clinic, and I would have that connection, which was really helpful with myself and my mom as well. So she got the support as well. Growing up, I had an IEP. I had educational assistance for toileting and gym and walking the hallways, just to be safe. I had more support than I probably would have in maybe a different school, because my mom was there to advocate for me because she was a teacher at my school as well. So she was really there to help advocate for my needs, for toileting and bringing nursing in for learning to cath. I started cathing when I was in grade 2, self-cathing. And then moving on, I have a metrophone for my cathing now, and we're just working on bowel routines and things, just to get that all sorted because I aged out before we could figure it out. So we're dealing with that right now, but it's
Shauna's
going well.
nodding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but my childhood, I felt I had a really good core group of friends that really stuck by me and helped me through those kind of tricky situations. And my sister was always there to be by my side and help me through those as well. So I feel like being so far from my home center, which is Holland Bloorview, I didn't get any of like the life skills programming or anything because I was too far. So I feel like if I had been able to be in those programs and learn and be around people with disabilities more, I probably would have felt different about myself earlier than I do now. I have a better self-love now, and I am better at changing the feeling of not being good enough or feeling different. And that just started recently, me feeling like I'm just a person. I'm just Melissa. That just started when I moved to Toronto and started my job at Holland Bloorview and getting more connected into the community. So I feel like my childhood really kind of paved the way for me to be involved in what I am today.
I'm really glad to hear that. And I thank you both for sharing your stories. On the earlier slide, we had that phrase, no one like me. And I think, that's common in both of your stories. And I also hear things like family and friends helping push you forward and pull you forward. And as well, Shauna, your experience of finding Hydrocephalus Canada and what that meant to you and how it changed your life. So I think that's really important for our audience to hear. It's interesting you both come from small towns. That's not always common. And I think another thing you share that many people who are listening, might appreciate is the many childhood surgeries and the surgeries that have continued since then. So I have a question that one came from one of our registrants. And that is, what percentage of children born with spina bifida also have hydrocephalus? If one of you want to tackle that one?
Sure. It's about 80%. That's what the statistics show. It might change in the coming years with the introduction of the in utero surgeries. Because with the in utero surgery, we are seeing a reduction in the incidence of hydrocephalus.
Okay, thanks for that, Shauna.
No problem.
So on to the topic of high school. What was it like? One question the group may have is about navigating that experience, moving into high school. What can you share about being in school that may help our audience? Shauna, if I can start with you.
Sure. Like Melissa, I do have a sister as well. She's not my twin though. She's a few years older. And hearing you say that, you wanted to be like her and do similar things like her, I was very much the same way. And she did push me quite a bit as well. I vividly remember we used to have bunk beds, and before I had my back surgeries, I had to wear a back brace, and I hated it. It was so confining, and I had to wear it at night when I slept as well. But I would try to undo it at night, but it made noise, and she could hear it, and she'd say, "You better stop doing that, or I'm going to tell mom." So I'm like, I could never get away from, or she was always there to support me, but she was always there as well to, monitor what I was up to. So yes, siblings are great.
To an extent.
But, we have a really good relationship now too. So, but you asked me about high school.
High school, yeah.
High school. I found high school very different. So in elementary school, I was often out weeks due to surgeries, and that would put me back a little bit in what the rest of the class was learning. I did have teachers when I was in the hospital, but it wasn't the same as being in the classroom. I wasn't often able to participate in gym, and frequently I couldn't go on the field trips with my classmates unless someone from my family went as well. I feel like this increased my isolation and labeled me with being different in my classmates' eyes. But that really changed when I went to high school, because I was bused to a different town. Wheatley doesn't have a high school. And there were new people in my classes that didn't know any of my medical history. And by that point in time, my bowel and bladder function was more manageable, and I could do the majority of it myself. And I didn't have to rely on a nurse or a family member to assist. So, I didn't have to go to the nurse's room for toileting. I used the girls' washroom like everybody else. I just carried a really big purse. It was almost bigger than I am. The one thing that I still did in high school was keep my condition hidden as much as possible. At the time, it was important for me to fit in, and being in a new school with new people, it was like I was reinventing myself. I was perceived to be like everyone else. My only outward appearance was my height. And I'm only 4'11", and I often got teased about my height. So, the change was very refreshing to me, from going from elementary school, where I've known, these 30 kids since I was 5 years old. And now I knew all of these new people, and they had no clue about any surgeries that I had ever done, or, any hospital runs or anything like that. So I think from kindergarten to grade 8, I was more isolated, and I was very shy in elementary school and not very outgoing at all. In high school, though, I became more confident, which helped me to be more open to new experiences and making friends. I did have a few instances where my balance and my lack of sensation in my leg indicated to classmates that I was a bit different. I vividly remember 2 incidents that gave people a glimpse into my condition. I was pushed accidentally while on the staircase at the school, and I landed so that my head hit the wall, but I also landed on my back. And the area where my spina bifida is very sensitive, and if even the slightest touch will send like these massive shock waves through my system. And this time it jarred me so badly that I couldn't move at all. So they had to call an ambulance, and, I was taken out, and everybody was staring at me, like, what's happened to her, right? So I don't like being in the spotlight. So that was like a little bit too much for me. I think in high school, I also engaged in more school activities. Like I got involved with the Spirit Club. I don't know what they call that now, but it was like a social group, and we did activities throughout the year with the students. And I was also on the student council. I went to school functions like dances and sporting events. I rarely did that in elementary school. I had my core group of friends that I did almost everything with, but then I also had other friends through my new interests. So there was, people that I had grown up with that were my core friends, and then these new people as well. And, high school also opened up the romantic relationships.
Yeah.
So I experienced, different, well, I'm not going to say I had a ton of boyfriends, but I had a few. I also had a part-time job after school and on the weekends, which added to my independence. It gave me a sense of, being almost like an adult because I had my own money and
Right.
I
Yeah.
could spend it on whatever I wanted. And then I also got my driver's license, which was great because being in a small town, there's no transit. So if you want to go out and do anything, you have to have your driver's license, which was really, a key for me because it gave me so much more independence.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, certainly the driver's license can make the difference getting out too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Melissa, what about you? Can you tell us a bit about your high school experience?
Sure. So mine is similar to Shauna's. I went to the same school with my same group of classmates until grade 8, and then I was bused to a different town for high school. So there was new people to meet that didn't know me or my condition. And it was kind of refreshing, like Shauna said, that you can make that new connection and not have that in the back of people's heads that you're different. So that was really good. I had a few experiences in high school where I had to start telling people about my disability. At the end of grade 8, I had my hip replaced, and I ended up in a wheelchair for 2 years, which is totally different. Before that, I had just walked with my AFOs. So now I was in a wheelchair, and it was a totally different experience for me. So that brought up conversations about my disability and my surgeries and all that kind of stuff, explaining that to new people as well. So after grade 8, I had another surgery and ended up in grade 10 doing my full grade 10 year at Holland Bloorview as an inpatient. So I was realistically teaching myself grade 10 and being away from all my classmates and all my friends and all my family. My parents were awesome, and they would come and visit me every weekend from Blue Mountain, 3 hours away. And my grandma would come on a Wednesday night and play games with me because she lived pretty close. But having that disconnect and being so isolated in the bubble of Holland Bloorview for a year really made reintegrating back into high school a challenge for me because I had missed so much. And being away, I felt obviously isolated and not knowing how to reintegrate what I had missed. So I ended up having some mental health issues coming back. So my family really helped me with that, and being connected back to my friends really helped as well. After my admission, I really got back into what I loved. I continued with clubs and things at high school. I was doing an awesome co-op placement in the special needs classroom. I was doing after school programming and volunteering. I had a few part-time jobs at daycare and at a hair salon, just so I could make that independence and work on those skills as well. I really had awesome support from my mom. She would send me different links to what Shauna would post on the website or what Holland Bloorview was doing. If they were doing like any virtual like seminars or anything they post about becoming independent. And being able to connect in spina bifida clinic during my high school years really helped me work on those skills for transition as well. So I was able to do the independence program where you go and live in a residence for 3 weeks by yourself and learn how to be on your own and learn how to live with roommates and all that kind of stuff. I did that when I was 17, right before I went to college. So my high school years really were challenging, but I feel like it made me become the person I am and have the courage to come out of my bubble, because I'm usually a pretty shy person. So I feel like everything that I had to go through my high school years kind of helped me in the long run, I think.
That's amazing. Thank you both for sharing the very inspiring stories. It sounds like high school presented new challenges, like dealing with medical interventions and how people may have seen you differently. I heard you also say it impacted on your feeling of fitting in and put stresses on your mental health in certain circumstances. I also hear the learning and resilience that you built, both of you, especially with the support of friends and family and learning how to advocate for yourself. We shared some of your key learnings from your high school experience on this slide. This is from a discussion that we had earlier. Is there anything you want to add to this list, Shauna and Melissa?
I think like starting to be independent as early as possible is really key to, you know, taking control of your life and not relying on others to help you get to where you need to go. I know that being as very independent has always, opened up possibilities for me. And, my mom has always said that I was very independent, even as a baby and as a child. I remember I had this kind of brace. I don't think they use it anymore. It was like AFOs. And then there was a rod between my knees, and it was supposed to help me with standing and, gaining balance, but I didn't care for it. So I took it off and I just started walking around the furniture on my own. And that's how I learned to walk. So I think if you think about ways that you can be independent, it will help you out along the way.
Perfect. Thank you. Melissa, anything that you want to add?
Sure. I just wanted to add that being able to advocate for yourself in like medical appointments, what questions to ask, being able to order your own supplies, being able to book your own appointments, being able to pick a route to a place in a city on like public transit, all those kind of things that maybe your parents help out with is really good to start thinking about working on early enough so you're ready to do it when you do transfer to the adult healthcare system, because the adult healthcare system does work a little different and they don't always talk to parents. So it's your job to do those appointments by yourself sometimes. Mm-hmm. So working on those skills is really important. That's what I really work on with my clients at Holland Bloorview.
And we're going to talk about that in a bit too, with the transition to adulthood. And we do have one question from one of our registrants, and it's a general question. It's a great question. How can we support each other? I'm thinking in the context of high school or other.
I think, having people around you that support you but don't coddle you. I don't know if that's the word I want to use, but they let you try and experiment and do things on your own is one form of support. I think also connecting with people that are that have some similar experiences is helpful. When I was growing up, there was no one else like me. I had no one to talk to other than my mom and dad. And they didn't know what it was like for me either, because, you know, they don't, I mean, they saw what I was going through, but they couldn't understand how frustrating it was for me to, you know, not be able to skate or, you know, do math. Like there was just something disconnected. And once I found other people that had similar issues, you know, and we talked about, you know, tips and strategies and suggest, you know, ways to get around certain things, it just clicked and it made sense to me. And I think, you know, those are kind of key things that will help you along the way as well.
Great. And Melissa, I see you nodding in
I
agreement.
agree with everything she says.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to talk a bit about community interaction and recreation. So everyone has unique interests in this area, you know, be it sports, be it, you know, volunteerism, involvement in your community on some level. Shauna, Melissa, what community activities or recreation activities interested you and why? And I'll start with Shauna.
So I'm a big hockey fan. Go Red Wings. I don't know if you can see it there. So I grew up with a lot of males in my neighborhood. So, you know, they were playing ball hockey on the road, and the people that lived right beside me, they had 2 boys and a girl, and there was me and my sister. So we made like this little skating rink between the 2 houses. So skating was a passion for me, but unfortunately, you know, my legs and my feet didn't cooperate. And there weren't a lot of other opportunities for community interaction and recreation in my community that didn't involve or revolve around sports. So I didn't play like hockey or soccer or baseball. And there were no adapted sports in my community, and my school didn't, but my school did its best to try and include me in things. So instead of actually playing baseball, well, I did play baseball kind of. I can hit the ball really well. I just can't run. So, you know, they would have somebody else run for me to the bases. I can also throw and catch. So, you know, we accommodated for my not being able to run. I was also very good at keeping score for baseball games. And I also kept score for several teams in the softball league in Wheatley. And one year I was honored with a bat and trophy, and all of the players signed it, and it said best little scorekeeper in town. So, you know, I was very, you know, it was like a little feather in my cap that I got this. And I remember during like track and field days at school, I would help keep time for the different races that happened or hand out ribbons, just so I was involved in the activity. I couldn't run in the events or participate, but that's how they tried to include me. I also remember really wanting to go to overnight camp. All my friends would go every summer. Unfortunately, my parents were reluctant to let me go because of the toileting issues. And there wouldn't have been any staff trained to help me if a situation arose. And at the time, we didn't know about Easter Seals camps. So if we had, that would have been great because I could have gone. But unfortunately, we didn't. So I went to a couple of day camps, which were okay. And then in high school, you know, I was exempt from gym completely. So I didn't attend gym at all. Where in elementary school, I went to the gym class, but I mostly just sat there and watched everybody else run around and do things. So I missed out. In high school, I missed out on sex education classes. And in my time, there was no internet to look stuff up. So, you know, my friends and I, we would talk about, you know, that subject. And I would learn what I could from books, and my mom also, talked to me about it. So I didn't, recreation wise, there wasn't a lot of options for me. But I did the best I could. I really like to play pool. And there was a local pool hall in town. So, I'm pretty good at playing pool. I've even won a trophy at one of HC's pool tournaments. So there's other things that you can do, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. It doesn't have to always revolve around sports. There's other activities and hobbies that you can get into. One sporting thing that I'm really good at is swimming. And I used to swim competitively as well with able-bodied people, not, so, I was usually at the end of the pack, but at least I tried and I did my best, and I was included.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shauna. How about you, Melissa?
So
your story.
So I was involved in a few recreational activities growing up. There was a few adapted organizations around my town. So I did ski through the Track 3 program and love it. I don't do it really now because of my hip replacement, but it was just so freeing and I loved going fast. So it was one of my favorite things to do. And I also horseback rode. I did competitions and things on horseback, which was awesome. I started when I was like 4 or 5. And just looked so tiny beside this big horse. And those 2 recreational activities kind of got me through my childhood. I also spent a lot of time at the skating rink because my sister and my mom are very big skating fans, and they are very involved. So I spent a lot of time at the rink watching my sister skate. I always wanted to do it as well. But like Shauna, I couldn't. So I loved to just watch my sister skate and my brother play hockey. I also was able to be a manager on my brother's baseball team. I was the scorekeeper and the pitch counter and all that kind of stuff. So I got my own sweater with manager on it, and all the boys loved me as their manager. So that was another thing recreationally I was able to be a part of. I was also like connected with different clubs like youth group and volunteering activities through my mom's school or just through the community in general. There wasn't a lot of other adapted activities that I was able to do. So those are 2 of the big ones that I was really involved with and really kind of helped me with my mental health and just staying active as well. So it was really fun growing up doing those activities.
Thank you, Melissa and Shauna. I think it's neat how you both lit up talking about your activities that you're involved in. So I think that's really important for people to see and to hear. We're going to be talking about this topic in much more depth on November 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. when we have our webinar on community interaction and recreation. So that was a little highlight of all the things that are possible. So thank you. We're going to move on. We're going to transition to adulthood. After graduation from high school, it can be a stressful time. We all know it's the big unknown. What can you share with us about your own transition to adulthood? Shauna?
Like Melissa, high school was a time where I gained more independence, and I started to take an interest in my healthcare and managing things for myself. As I mentioned before, my mom said I've always had a very independent streak from a very young age. One of the first areas of independence was around toileting. I learned to self-cath by, I think it was grade 3 or 4. In elementary school, I was given space in the nursing room for my supplies and access to a private washroom. And I would take care of business during recess and lunch. But high school was a little bit trickier because there weren't those recess times where you could, go and do what you needed to do. So I often had to go during a class, and I usually picked geography because I really didn't care for geography. And I carried a large purse for my supplies. So that's one way that I transitioned from, the toileting side of things from elementary to high school. And then I think also having a part-time job gave me a purpose and a sense of responsibility. I was also given tasks at home to do, like helping to make dinner and set the table and wash the dishes. And these experiences made the transition to college and living on my own much easier, because I had some knowledge of what you actually needed to do. I just wasn't watching other people do it. I was, responsible for it.
Mhm.
I completed high school and received my diploma in 4 years. I knew I wasn't going to university. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I wanted to go to a trade school and actually learn a trade. So I was very excited to get accepted to Fanshawe College, and I went through the radio broadcasting course. I was excited to move out of my parents' home and live on my own. And I'm actually the first person in our family on both sides that went to college. So that was quite a feat for me in itself, with dealing with everything there is to deal with spina bifida, and then actually getting accepted to college into the program that I really wanted to do. The radio broadcasting program at Fanshawe College is very, it's hard to get into, let's put it that way. They only allow, I think it's 30 students per year, and it might have gone down from then. So it was something that I wanted, so I went for it. And I was moving away from my parents, so it was giving me a chance to be on my own. And my parents were great. I couldn't have gotten through my childhood without them, but I wanted to know what it was like to be on my own, and I loved it. I really did. The one thing I wasn't prepared for when I moved to college was learning how to manage money. I think that's something that you really, really need to learn how to do, and how to create a budget, because it's essential. It's an essential tool for living on your own and being responsible for, buying food, paying your rent, paying your utilities, and then, hopefully having a little left over for entertainment purposes. I think my transition to college was pretty easy, actually. I think it's because I was eager to move out of Wheatley and just, go somewhere different and meet new people and try something new. And then even after college, I didn't go back to my hometown. I moved to Toronto. I stayed with my sister for a couple of years to help her out with her kids while I was looking for a job. And then once I was gainfully employed and could support myself, I found an apartment, and I've been living on my own for over 30 years now. So, I do everything myself. I'm in charge of my own healthcare. I make my own appointments. I order my own supplies. I renew prescriptions. But I also manage my household. And throughout the years, I've had different pets. So, a pet is like having a child. You have to manage them as well, and take care of them and make sure they're fed, and, take them to the vet, that kind of thing. So I think learning about some independence and having things to do in early childhood and as a teen will prepare you for the the transition to adulthood, whether it be going to college or university or going straight into a job, living on your own. These are all things that are expected of us, but sometimes you need just a little bit more help to get there. And that's where, Melissa comes in to play with her job at Holland Bloorview, and where I come into play somewhat too in my role at the association. There've been some medical issues as I age, but for the most part, I live my life how I want, and I do my best to not let my condition hold me back from living life.
You're living your best life, right?
I'm trying to.
Thanks, Shauna.
I can say that this last 2 years with the pandemic has been a struggle. I don't think I probably have had issues with mental health, but it's never really been pointed out to me. But the isolation the last 2 years, I have struggled a bit.
Thanks for pointing that out, Shauna. Yeah, that's something very relevant right now. And here we are having this on Zoom because we're not yet back together, right?
Right.
So it's a good point. Thanks, Shauna.
You're welcome.
Melissa, how about you? What can you tell us or share with us about your transition to adulthood?
So like Shauna, I learned to calf and do my toileting pretty early in life, grade 2 or 3. So the transition from needing EA support to in high school, doing it myself, being able to use the normal bathroom, knowing that I can leave class, getting that permission to leave class to do it, being able to have the EA support to become as independent and as I can at school was really great. I was able to at home have my sister with me, and we learned how to be independent together, I feel. So we would share chores, we would help with the dishes, we would cook supper for the family, and she would support me in the things that I couldn't do. So I would do the dishes and my sister would do the floors, or she would take the garbage out. So we would work together in that sense as well. And that really helped me in my later years going to college. I went my first degrees in from Fanshawe College as well, like Shauna.
Yeah.
So it really helped me to be able to live with roommates and be able to become more independent and live on my own. And that's really where doing the programs through Holland Bloorview helped as well. The independence program really helped me become independent and being able to live on my own and go to school. And it really helped me to work on those skills, like Shauna said, being able to book your own medical appointments and book Wheel-Trans or take the TTC, or order your medication and your supplies. I really had to work on those skills living 3 hours away from my family to be able to do those skills. I had to meet new doctors because I had moved my doctors from Toronto to London. So doing those appointments on my own was a struggle at first, knowing what to ask them and remembering things that I needed to tell them. So working on all those different skills really helped me to become independent and do as well as I could. I moved from residence from Fanshawe to Toronto to live with my friend that I met in college. I did watch her nephew for a few years as a nanny before I got my position at Holland Bloorview. And I've been living on my own, I think, for about 12 years now. And I can do most things that Shauna says as well. I take care of my household. I budget my money. I do my medical appointments. I cook. I do all the things that we're expected to do. Just maybe it takes a little bit longer, or I have to do it in a different way. But I feel like starting to work on these skills early is really, really important to be able to be ready for the adult transition, and learning before you get discharged from your pediatric care provider to learn all these skills and do all these things is really, really important. So knowing that that you need to consent for your parents to be in the appointments, or you need to consent for them to talk to your doctors, or that some of the different providers don't see you regularly like pediatrics do. All of those different things that come up is so, so important to know and to learn. And that's really where I found the struggle, was the medical transition. Was a struggle for me growing up. So I feel like if our kids can work on that and have that down pat and everything figured out before they turn 18 and they're ready for transition, I think that would be success in their transition as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Melissa and Shauna. And that's something that you've both said, and I just wrote down, developing these skills at an early age is critical to being able to be successful with the transition. So I also noted something you said. Well, you both went to Fanshawe College, another similarity, but doing it in a different way. I thought that was a lovely way of saying it. You're doing it, just doing it in a different way. So thank you. There was so much there between your two sharings with us, so much there to leave with our audience. We actually put a slide together on a couple of things, tips about gaining independence. Shauna and Melissa, is there anything that you might want to add to this list now, as you just talked about the experience? It's fresh in your mind.
I think one key thing is really learning to manage money, and to be aware of your surroundings as well. I know some people that take Wheel-Trans and they have no idea where they're going on Wheel-Trans. They just know that they're getting to the spot. I think you need to be aware of, what route is being taken in case, for whatever reason, maybe the Wheel-Trans bus breaks down and you're going to be late for an appointment. So you need to get on the bus or the subway, but you don't know where you are. So you need to be aware of your surroundings as well. And that's a safety issue as well. If you're going to live on your own, you need to be aware of safety issues too. Especially if you're in a big city like we are here in Toronto. There's certain things that you need to be aware of, and just common sense things sometimes, I think.
Yeah. And Melissa, anything you want to add?
I think just advocacy skills are really, really important. Asking for help when needed, knowing when to ask and how you're asking, and definitely learning before you get transitioned. I'm speaking in transition to medical care, knowing who your new doctors are going to be, knowing how the adult system works, understanding that they don't follow so closely like pediatrics does, knowing when to call them, when you need to call them, when a problem comes up. All those things are really, really important to keep you safe and to be able to have a good adult healthcare experience. So definitely knowing that going in to switching services is, I think, really, really important as well.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much. I think that's all the time we have this evening. We've had some questions, which is great. And just before we go, we want to make sure we don't forget to thank our sponsor, Sick Kids Foundation. Sick Kids Foundation is responsible for helping us put forward this 5-part youth webinar series. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you to our hosts, Melissa and Shauna. I'm very grateful to have you both here and sharing your stories with us. I know that they will make a difference.